all have kind of things don't go our way, whether it's on a golf or basketball or maybe going to the gym and like, don't feel very good today or whatever. Things don't always go our way. So I guess how does mindfulness support us?
So really, your ability to move on from something is what's going to set you apart from, another athlete or, whatever context that you're working in. If you can learn a few mindfulness techniques, I really feel that it can be transformative for your own well-being and the well-being of those around you. It's helped me not only at work, but, in relationships, as a parent, not being as reactive and being more playful and calm. If I were to convey a message to athletes is
I just want to quickly thank you for beginning to watch this podcast episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. Would love it if you join our community. You'll also be up to date on the latest content, and this really helps me reach out to more guests. You can also visit our website, centerformindfulness.ca. There's free events about mindfulness and laughter. Hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Kasim Al-Mashat, Registered Psychologist and Mindfulness Teacher from the Center for Mindfulness Canada in Vancouver. I'm interested in bringing you conversations that can support creating positive change, well-being, and mindful living. I'm really excited about today's topic and guest, as we'll be covering sports psychology, mental health, and mindfulness. So a warm welcome to our guest today, Dr. Rashmeen Nirmal. Welcome to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Really looking forward to this conversation. And maybe I'll just share a little bit about your bio for those who are not as familiar with you. So Dr. Rashmeen Nirmal is a registered psychologist at BC Children's Hospital, director of Neurodevelopment Group. We'll talk about what that means, neurodevelopment, and clinical instructor in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of British Columbia, which is in Vancouver, Canada. She has presented on the topic of neurodevelopment, national and international conferences. Dr. Nirmal's interest in sports psychology started when she was on a golf scholarship in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This interest evolved while in graduate school and resulted in her conducting a program evaluation for the Respect in Sport program. That's really interesting too, so we'll talk about that. And Dr. Nirmal is helping bridge neurodevelopment, mental health, and mindfulness through her program, Golf PhD program. So much to talk about. Welcome to you again. I wonder if we can begin just from your interest, personal interest in that combination of sports psychology, mental health, and mindfulness, bringing mindfulness into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess how much time do we have? So my interest in sports psychology or psychology in general started when I was really young. My father was a registered psychologist and also a very avid golfer. And so him and I, we would play a lot of golf together. And I really got addicted to the game, so much so that I just played every day, all day after school in high school, and then eventually got recruited on a golf scholarship to Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I majored in psychology while I was down there, and that's when I really developed quite a strong interest in psychology and sports or sports psychology. But it wasn't until graduate school where I really started to learn and understand the importance of mindfulness in sports and the role that mindfulness can play with athletes, and not only athletes but coaches as well. So yeah, a little bit about how I got to where I am right now.
Yes. So it's a very personal experience of sports, of mindfulness. And for those who maybe haven't heard even the word mindfulness, it's really basically awareness. When we're in the present moment, it could be mindfulness meditation is when we're developing a practice, 10-minute sitting, 20-minute, 30-minute, but then we bring it to our daily life where we can notice the moment and be present. And I'm wondering, for you developing a mindfulness practice, would you say for those who are on the fence, is it worth checking out, like developing a mindfulness, whether it's in sport or for mental health? Has it been worth it for you?
It certainly has. So I took the 8-week MBSR program. I
the mindfulness-based stress reduction. Yeah,
absolutely. And I do Monday meditation every Monday night as well. And I'm so glad that I embarked on those experiences because it helped to debunk what meditation and
Mm,
mindfulness is. In my mind, it's, before that, it was, okay, sitting on a pillow and for minutes or hours on end. But there really are different facets to mindfulness and
mm,
meditation, like walking meditation, which
mm,
I find so effective because you can do it anywhere. Walking to the grocery store could be a mindfulness activity or a meditative experience. With athletes being at,
mm.
at the line ready to shoot the 2-point free throw, that could be a moment of mindfulness. Golf for the entire round could be
Yes.
meditation, really. And so, certainly for me, it's been really worthwhile in developing a sense of calm, equanimity, sort of
Mm,
being a little bit more conscious in what I say, not as impulsive.
mm.
So yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been worthwhile.
So it seems to be catching this reactivity, and we all have kind of things don't go our way, whether it's on a golf or basketball, or maybe going to the gym and like, don't feel very good today, or whatever. Things don't always go our way. So I guess, how does mindfulness support us in terms of how you share it and really interfering with what thoughts, what gets in the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really, your ability to move on from something is what's going to set you apart from, another athlete or, whatever context that you're working in. So, for example, I'll draw an example from golf. Golf is a very cerebral game. It's you, the course, the ball, the clubs. I always say you and the course should be working together as a team,
Mm,
not against each other. So, just that simple shift can also help in terms of how positive that experience is going to be with that course. So when we hit a poor shot, it's really normal to get kind of frustrated or aggravated or annoyed,
mm,
blame something around you or blame yourself. But that's not going to serve you any purpose moving forward. So the most important shot in golf is the next one and how you can recover from that situation. And so be mindful in that moment, saying to yourself, yeah, that was a sucky shot. That is not what I wanted. That's okay. There's lots of shots left. We're going to move on. I'm going to relax. Because if we don't do that, what happens? Your body remains tense. Your brain remains tense. It's hard for you to cognitively shift onto
mm.
the next shot. And, golf and sports, they're a game of physics. Every degree, whether you're throwing, serving, golfing, swinging a baseball bat, each mechanical part of it can get affected by you being tense.
Yeah.
Being able to accept the shot in a non-judgmental way and move on to the next one is
Mm.
really going to set you apart.
And these are the skills, this non-judgmental, this kind, compassionate way of working with ourselves is really what we cultivate in mindfulness. I know you mentioned mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's also creating perspective change, like how you said it. Wait a minute, that one is done. Let me be one with the golf court, or you don't say golf court. Obviously, I'm not a golfer. I'm thinking tennis court. But being one with whatever sport you're doing or gym and working together, rather, if it doesn't go your way, something's the enemy or something. And just for viewers to know, we actually had to apply this ourselves because we were about half an hour into it and I realized it wasn't recorded. So we had to redo. I go, you know what? We're going to have to like let it go, just exactly applying these skills we're
Yeah.
describing, starting fresh.
Yeah.
Sometimes things don't exactly how we want them. And then we continue, carry on. Otherwise, we're lugging the past with us, which interferes with the present moment.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if we even take a step back with just exercise alone for a moment and mental health. What would you say? Why is it helpful for mental health to have a regular exercise program or routine in the week?
Yes, absolutely. So it sounds almost obvious to say this, but sometimes what we find is obvious can be really hard to implement for whatever
Mm,
reason, right? So it's been known for decades through research, clinical
mm,
practice, that exercise is not only correlated with positive health outcomes, but
mm,
also treatment of mental health conditions and prevention of mental health conditions. So what the research shows is about 30 minutes of moderate intensity fitness or exercise 3 days per week can actually have antidepressant effects.
mm,
It's shown to increase well being, health outcomes such as high blood pressure, diabetes, but then also decrease things like anxiety and depression or sort of negative mood symptoms. So for me, that's compelling. That's compelling.
Yes.
And 30 minutes of moderate intensity, that's defined as a really brisk walk. It could be a jog. It could be, gardening. Even gardening counts if you're going at sort of a really nice pace and you're picking things up and moving around. So one would be surprised how much is already embedded in their day to
Yeah.
day that could be considered moderate intensity, and just being mindful of that and connecting that experience to the notion of I'm dosing myself with really positive, healthy, attainable medicine right now. And
Yeah.
that is exercise.
Yeah. That is so good to hear, because sometimes I hear from many people saying, well, I did the laundry, I moved at home, or I vacuumed. That's my exercise, or moved around. And there's something about the research that you're naming, which for me is like the prescription that I offer people, is exactly as you said, is, what if we consider it as a prescription? Like, it's something that we all can do 3 times, 30-minute, moderate. We're challenging ourselves a little bit, and we're triggering the natural pharmacy in the brain.
Yes.
We have it. It's free. It's right there.
Absolutely.
Serotonin, dopamine. And there's also, I wonder if you can share a little bit about that too, the sense of self, like feeling good about ourselves, doing something, movement.
Yeah. So exercise is also correlated with higher levels of self-esteem, confidence. So there's lots of really good byproducts to working out. You might start to look better, feel better. Your clothing might fit a little bit better. And all those nuggets, they really help to improve our self-esteem and our confidence. Being able to commit to something in a consistent way is a very empowering thing to do, especially when in this day and age we're drawn in so many different directions with the influence of the internet and social media. It's those mechanisms are really designed to draw us in and keep us there.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And they can really take control of us. But when you are following that prescription of exercise, you're getting out 3 days per week for 30 minutes of moderate intensity workout, you are now in the driver's seat. You are creating that consistent routine that is ultimately going to make you feel confident about yourself and improved, levels of self-esteem. It's important to name it too, because sometimes we get into kind of this routine, but we don't name it. And I think by naming it, we bring it into our conscious awareness of why this is helpful.
Yeah. As you're saying this too, I'm just, if someone is wanting to start a routine, or maybe they want to adjust their routine, bringing the mindfulness approach, the lens, the skill we develop in mindfulness, which is start fresh, start new, non-judgmental. If you're not happy with the level of fitness you are or how your body is, bringing loving kindness to that, not from a place of shaming or judging, but actually loving yourself and challenging in a healthy way, because our mind loves routine and loves, it's comfortable. Like, just sitting and scrolling through like all the social media for hours is comfy, right? So what would you say? I wonder if we can support those who, if you are doing these exercises, please keep going. Good work. And if you want to revisit or re-examine, maybe you can give them some tips on what can get this going in terms of exercise routine and being kind to themselves.
Well, that's a loaded question. I think start small, even if it's 5 minutes per day in your dancing to your favorite song at breakfast time. Get the body moving and then build from that. Same thing with mindfulness. Folks who have difficulties practicing mindfulness meditation, some of my teachers, including you, have said start with 1 minute and build up from there. Pay attention to one breath and then another breath. And I love that. The other night, one of my teachers said, inhale, but pay attention to the exhale. The inhale is going to happen. We breathe.
Right.
The brainstem's doing its thing, but pay attention to that exhale. So really breaking it down for yourself to make it more doable and manageable. You don't need the fancy meditation pillow or,
Right.
to use all the fancy meditation words that I still don't know. Make it doable for yourself and start small.
This brings up something we were talking about earlier, the cognitive distortions.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
have it. I know you bring it into your program as well, that maybe we can speak about this, like when we do this black or white thinking. I mean, can you share a little bit about that? Like these distortion of, if I either do it all or I'm going to fail, I have to be fit, or, I'm not worthy to go to a gym, or whatever.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up. So cognitive distortions, they're also known as thinking traps, these
Mm,
automatic, negative, sometimes even irrational thoughts. So a good example is that black and white thinking. Oh,
mm,
I'm never going to shoot under par, or I always miss the free throw, or I always lose in a playoff. That's a
mm.
really negative way of thinking. So, for example, we want to train our brains to sort of see the gray in situations. If you're going to tee up and say, "Oh, yep, this is going right into the water," guess what? It probably is going to go right into the water.
Yes.
So set yourself up in a more positive or neutral way. I think an example we talked about earlier was around forecasting that you're going to shoot a specific score. So, I really hope to shoot between 75 and 80 today, or I want to break 80, or I want to break 70.
Which is numbering in golf for those who are not familiar with golf. Is that right?
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
So that's the total score after playing 18
Mm.
holes. So usually par is 72 at most championship courses. And so you often hear like, oh, I really want to break 80 today. I really want to break 70. Sure, it's good to set goals, but if you say I really want to break 80 today, what if you break 70? What if you do even better? It's important to go in with sort of more of a neutral shot by shot approach, because you might surprise yourself because you're not putting those sort of black and white or forecasted expectations on yourself. So mindfulness can really help with that too, in that you can label, oh, I'm engaging in a thought trap right now. That
Mm.
thought is really trying to trap me, but I'm going to move away from that thought, moving away from that thinking brain, that thinking mind right now. We're going to focus on the show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, that's the non-judgmental piece that really is very experiential, like in mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction, like actually recognizing a thought and then not being upset for having it.
Yeah.
Because, oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I thinking am I going to do well? When am I going to stop thinking? Now we're shaming our thoughts. Now we're fighting with ourselves rather than it's just a thought. Let it be,
Yeah.
start fresh, which is what we do as we
Yeah.
train ourselves in meditation. Just start fresh.
Absolutely. And I would add a layer of self compassion to that,
Yeah.
because we're not robots, right? Like we're going to get upset by something that's not so
Yeah.
positive, a poor shot or putting it in the water or missing the net. So it's okay to say to yourself, this is really frustrating. This is a
Mhm.
hard, and we're going to move on to the next shot. So
Mm.
really validating, labeling, or naming that
Mm.
feeling, that emotion, and then moving on.
Yeah. Because we can be such, critics of ourselves. Like our mind can really like keep us stuck,
Yeah.
and then forget starting anything new, like new exercise, a new routine, a new anything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be hard to cognitively shift, that
Mm.
flexible thinking, moving on from one thought to another, one behavior to another. And the good
Mm.
news is those skills can be taught and they can be applied. And it's like building a muscle,
Mm.
strengthening a muscle. The more you do it, the more it's going to become ingrained in your natural way of being.
Yeah.
I'm sure for you right now, Dr. Kasim, if you skip a
Mhm.
day of meditation, it's probably more uncomfortable than it is comfortable, right? That's where we want to get with fitness. If you miss a workout, it should get to a point where like, oh, I really need to get back in the gym. I don't feel so great today. I didn't get that workout in, or that moderate intensity in.
Such a good way of saying it, because there'll be a period in starting exercise or certain exercise routine or starting meditation where we have to just challenge ourselves just enough to get out, just to get going or to do the meditation. And then it becomes something we look forward to. Like I look forward to my block time for exercise, my block time for meditation. Like these are like non-negotiable for me in my schedule, because if we leave it to, oh, if I feel like it, or if I'm in the mood, we're not going to exercise and we're not going to meditate.
Right.
All right.
About this earlier. we're not going to get better at the things if we're avoiding what we want to get better
Mm,
at.
right.
So, I know sometimes I'm guilty of this. I go to the golf course and I practice what I'm really good at, because it
Mm.
makes us feel good. And sometimes you need that. You need that behavioral momentum, the feeling of, yeah, I got this. But then you can't be upset with yourself if you can't get out of the bunker if you're not practicing your bunker game.
Yes. Right. And the bunker in golf is the sand. Is that
Trap.
what it is?
Yeah,
The
trap.
traps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting comfortable in the things that challenge us. So if it's bunker and golf, or if it's going to the gym and being self-conscious, or if it's going for a walk that it's a little more hilly than usually like, being comfortable with it's okay. I'm not feeling comfortable like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the uncomfortableness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Got to do the hard things in life for sure.
Yes. I just want to go back to something in terms of your you have this program about golf PhD, and you may, we talked earlier, you may have a different version of it in the future as well. But so this combination of sports psychology, mental health, and mindfulness. Can you say a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say when I was a college golfer in Florida, I probably wasn't the most mindful golfer,
Mm,
largely because maybe I didn't have the knowledge or the skill set or the understanding of how mindfulness can play such an important role in sport in general. In golf, an average round is about 4 to 4.5 hours, and it's you
mm,
and the course and your mind. So, being able to befriend your mind is really, really important
yeah.
in golf and really in any sport. And so as I matured over time and went to graduate school and did my master's and PhD, I started to draw parallels between the psychology literature and sport and the neurodevelopment literature and sport.
Mm,
And so certainly mindfulness is one important tenet of the program. So like we've discussed, that bringing yourself more into conscious awareness and being able to approach things or react to things in a non-judgmental way, and really reach that flow state where you're feeling comfortable, like we talked about with the uncomfortable, and that layer of self-compassion. And then the neurodevelopment piece is more of that cognitive piece. How can we apply cognitive functions like attention, executive functions like flexibility, being able to be flexible and shift
like
your
mental flexibility.
mental
Yeah.
flexibility? Absolutely. So that's another tenet of the golf PhD program, which might eventually be the sport PhD program, like we talked
Right.
about earlier, because it's relevant to all sport. These tenets don't change. Sure, there might be different, little nuggets that are, a little bit more germane to specific sports, but mindfulness component, the executive functioning component, which is the planning, the organization in sport, the flexibility in thinking, so on and so forth, and then the self-compassion.
Mm,
How do we marry those three to help develop a strong mental game in an athlete? Is
mm.
sort of where the program is at.
Mm. What a beautiful intersection of key elements. Like this is when you're describing it, like a sense of wholeness. We're training the body in sports or exercise, but it's not disconnected with our mind and the thoughts we have. And how can we support change in the brain? Can you say a little bit about the neurodevelopment piece? And how pathways in our brain basically it's involved around when we learn new things. So can you say a little bit about that, the neurodevelopment piece?
Absolutely. Again, how much time do we have?
Yeah, yeah.
So my area of specialty in psychology is neurodevelopment. So I
Mm,
work a lot with children, teenagers, and young adults with neurodevelopmental differences or
mm,
neurodiversity, essentially. So said in another way, I specialize in autism spectrum disorder,
mm,
ADHD, learning disabilities, folks with language delays, social differences. That sort of and intellectual differences, intellectual disabilities. So neurodevelopment is kind of this big umbrella. Big piece of neurodevelopment is looking at different cognitive function. And so what I mean by that are things like memory, attention, how we process language, how we process visual information, how fast we think.
mm.
Another component of cognitive functioning is what we call executive functioning. And that's just a fancy word. Psychology is full of fancy words,
Sure is.
polls, but executive functioning is kind of like your CEO of the brain or the secretary of your brain. So it's mediated largely by your prefrontal cortex, the frontal region of your brain, but other regions as well, but primarily the frontal region of your brain. And it includes our ability to plan for things, either in the moment or future. So you can think about with sport, I'm going to plan this shot.
Mm-hmm.
Organization, keeping your materials organized. So is your gym bag organized? Is your locker organized? Is your golf bag organized?
Oh.
All of those things are organized. That's going to unload kind of more mental clutter. You want to reduce that.
Mm.
So the more organized you are around yourself, including your athletic gear, the more your brain's going to have space, or that spaciousness that we look for. I know that word's very common in meditation and mindfulness, spaciousness, for you to focus on what's important. And that's you and the court, you and the ice, you and the golf course. Executive function also includes our ability to be flexible in thought and flexible in behavior. So we talked a lot about that bad shot or that bad stroke, and how do you move on from that, both mentally and physically. So I know in particular, your MBSR course, we do a lot of body scans. You can do abbreviated body scans if you're sitting on the bench or you're waiting, walking to your next shot. You can say, how do my shoulders feel right now? How do my feet feel right now? As I walk, am I feeling the bottom of my foot on the earth? And so that sort of encapsulates the mental, sort of the flexibility, that cognitive shifting. And I can go on and on and on because again, functions is an umbrella term, but that's how I had this light bulb moment working as a neurodevelopmental psychologist, and how we can apply these principles to sport. So it's mental health, but it's also the cognitive piece. And really, as you said, it should be looking at sort of the wholeness, the whole person, rather than just certain components.
Yeah.
When I say wholeness, that includes coaches and parents, administrators, because they ultimately affect the well-being and performance of an athlete.
And the pressures, I can imagine all the pressures that, athletes, whether professional, amateur, or even those just starting an exercise program, whatever they're a walk or going to a gym, as I said earlier. So there's the pressure of being a certain way. And there's something about how you name going to our body, being present, like the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. Now I'm here. What's happening here? What do I see? What do I hear? It takes us off this autopilot thinking that we get caught in the mind. It's like looping thinking. And the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, John Kabat-Zinn, it just, as he said that, actually one of his books is called Coming to Our Senses. Right. And really coming to our senses is returning to, what's here? What can we hear? What can we see? What can we feel? These doorways to being present. That's available to us.
It's available, right? And going back to why I started to engage in mindfulness is because it's available, and it's available wherever you are. So I'm drawing a lot of parallels to golf.
Yes.
When you're walking down the fairway, what do you see the trees doing? How does the breeze feel under your cap or through your hair? What color are the leaves that you see? Look at the different blades of the grass. So many opportunities on a golf course to practice that walking mindfulness, that walking meditation. And that can be the same thing on a hockey rink, on the ice. Look at the way that the light is hitting the beautiful white ice. Look at the shavings of the ice. They look like, small stars or icicles. So there's many moments to sort of bring yourself into that awareness of what's around you.
And physiologically, as we become more present in that way, connecting to the present moment, it also has a calming effect on the nervous system. Compared to the upsetting thoughts like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not doing well? And now we're agitated, we're upset, it like physiologically affects us, which is going to likely not lead to a good shot, or not lead to even stepping into the gym, or right, it's not going to lead us to these things. So maybe that could be a fun little homework if listeners want to try it out, is if you're wanting to start something new at gym, or you want to continue something, maybe be curious at what you like. If there's music there, what is the music? You're going to hear sounds. What are you seeing? What is involving your senses? Like, that becomes an adventure, like being like, oh, what's here?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you bring up the gym, because that is a common theme of folks not wanting to go to the gym because they're worried about what other people will think of them. So I've seen this where, be it friends or clients, they're too nervous to go up into the gym because they feel like they might be evaluated, or that other folks might make fun of them. So we're seeing sort of these elements of social anxiety. And so I love that. I I love the way you described that at the gym. How does it feel when you pick up that dumbbell, metal against your hand, and really focusing on that lived experience rather than the experience of who's around you?
Yeah.
Right? When I'm laying down my yoga mat, I'm going to do it with intention. Sure, there's many seasoned yogis in here, but I'm here with me and the mat and the floor and my teacher, and we're going to work together. Yeah, I like that, that example you brought up.
You remind me of something that a teacher has mentioned to me, a yoga teacher, which is she used to say that often. It's stay on your mat, and not like physically staying on the mat, but how the mind's like, oh, they're better than me, or they're more flexible. How come I can't do this? Now we're not on our mat. Just focusing on whatever ability we're at, and we can improve it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the mind gets into this. We talked about thinking traps earlier and distorted thinking. The mind loves this compare and despair. Like, oh, I'm not as good. Look at them, I'm bad. And then we get discouraged. And personally, what I found helpful for me, if I'm going to compare, I'm going to compare to who I want to be more like. So, I want to be more like this athlete. What are they doing? Oh, they're so calm. They're so dedicated. Or this teacher. Like, what are the qualities I want to foster? That for me inspires me rather than go, oh, I'm so far away from this athlete. I'm not a professional athlete, but I love sports and practice sports.
I love that my dad used this term virtual mentor, silent mentor. Didn't know they were his mentor, but he looked up to them as if they were his mentor. So it's sort of observing those positive attributes or characteristics that you wish to embody to be a better version of yourself. I remember him telling me that when I was a teenager, and that really stuck with me. So I myself have these mentors that don't know are my mentors.
Right. And they don't know, right?
Yeah, they don't know, but I certainly do observe and learn from what they do well, and maybe areas that could be supported, because we all have areas that could be supported.
Virtual mentors, and that is free. We can all we can all look for virtual mentors and people who can go, oh, I would like to develop this thing. I like the way they approach things, or their humor, or whatever it is. So
a lot of the best things in life are free.
That's right. Yeah.
Not graduate school, but
No, the graduate school takes for a little bit. That's right. That's right. Speaking about graduate school, I just want to go back to something. I was really curious about this Respect in Sport program you did in graduate school. And when I looked, I hadn't heard of it before. I looked it up. I was like, ooh, we need more of that. Can you say a little bit about this respect?
When I started my master's there, so that was back in 2006. There was a team out in Ontario looking for a graduate student to do a program evaluation on their program, which is Respect in Sport. So Respect in Sport is a e-learning program designed for coaches and parents to recognize things like bullying, abuse, neglect, harassment in sport, understanding their power and how misuse of power can occur in sport. So this program was developed by a former NHL hockey player, Sheldon Kennedy, who played, I believe, for the Flames, Calgary Flames, and a few other really strong performing NHL teams. And when he was a junior athlete, he was sexually molested by his coach, I believe over 300 times.
Oh, wow.
Twice a week between the ages of 14 and 19. So this resulted in significant mental health issues for Mr. Kennedy: anxiety, depression, suicidal risk, etc. He eventually disclosed his story to police, and so that got taken care of for the most part with the coach. And then Sheldon, in collaboration with the Canadian Red Cross, developed this program with some researchers out in Ontario. The organization, I believe, is called PrevNet, and it's a sort of a bullying awareness organization, or promoting social emotional health in children. And so they developed this program for coaches to take and parents to take. So the program is mandatory for many organizations. Like, I don't know them off the top of my head. It's been a while since I did the evaluation, but Sport Manitoba, even Golf Canada. So it's become mandatory for coaches.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah. And so when I did the program evaluation, the topic was coaches' perceived impact of the Respect in Sport program on their ability to recognize things like misuse of power, bullying, harassment, neglect, abuse, etc. We had coaches, over 1,000 coaches, participate in the study, and they represented over 51 won sports, and the outcomes of their perception of the program were very positive in terms of their ability to recognize these things, and not only recognize them, but also know what to do in these situations. So that was for my master's thesis. And then for my PhD, I really went the neurodevelopment route. I specialized in autism spectrum disorder. And now it's sort of, I'm closing the circle. Now I'm neurodevelopment and the sports, and we're marrying the two because athletes can be neurodiverse. Right?
Yeah.
Athletes can have ADHD, athletes can have learning disabilities. And so really looking at the whole person and not just this athlete as this fictional character that we see on television.
Right. And we put them on a pedestal, but everyone's human, and they're going, they worked on their body, they worked on their mind, they worked on their emotions. And that's one of the things that makes us excel, is when we work on things patiently over time in anything, or sports or meditation. It's just patience over time. And, the gracefulness when things don't go well in our route. And sometimes it's not how we plan it. Sometimes we have too much of a very strict plan. In 2 years, I want to be here. Well, that's great, but life happens, and let's adjust. Let's keep adjusting.
Adjust, adapt. How do you recover from perceived problems?
Yes. This has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I'm really excited about this program that you're offering, and it's going to continue evolving. So I'm wondering, how would people learn about the work you're doing? And I'll put it in the show notes. What's the best way for people to reach you if they have questions or they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I have the website for the Neurodevelopment Group. So that would be, you could go to rashmeennirmal.com or the neurodevelopmentgroup.com, and it will direct you to my website, or just do a Google search and you'll hit the website. For folks who are on social media, I do a lot of the golf PhD work on the Instagram platform on that space. And I'm just in the process of developing a golf PhD website. We're in the developing stage, but only that shouldn't prevent someone or preclude someone from getting in touch if they're interested in working on their mental game. And so through my private practice website would be the best way to reach me.
Absolutely. And can you say that private practice website? And I'll put it in the show notes so those who are wanting to write it down.
It's just www.rashmeennirmal.com or the Neurodevelopment Group.com. Yeah, so it'd be the Neurodevelopment Group. I'm all about the.
Very good. Well, I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
So we'll have it over there. And any final thoughts for viewers or listeners in terms of sports psychology, mental health, mindfulness?
Just do it. And if you can learn a few mindfulness techniques, I really feel that it can be transformative for your own well-being and the well-being of those around you. It's helped me not only at work, but, in relationships as a parent. It's been tremendously helpful in terms of not being as reactive and being more playful and calm in your in your approach.
Yes.
And really giving that more spaciousness. If I were to convey a message to athletes, is, you're amazing. Do other things you love. The sport isn't the only thing that your life should be about. Sure, you have to work hard if you want to be a high performance athlete, and you got to put in the time. Do the other things you love, because that's gonna help you with your well-being. And for coaches and parents, there's more to the athlete than just their sport, and to keep that in mind as well.
What a beautiful way of saying it, and just this encouragement to everyone just to give something a try. And if anyone is interested in terms of mindfulness, we have free sessions, and you can look it up at the centerformindfulness.ca about mindfulness-based stress reduction. I would love to share that if you're interested, those who haven't explored it before. Thank you so much again for this very, very supportive, helpful, mind-opening conversation. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us. And I want to thank all the listeners for watching and listening. If you found this useful, feel free to share, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, everyone.